Hello everyone! A pit 110 clear in 35 seconds is not a myth. It is a real endgame version of this build, and that is exactly the sorcerer you see on screen running in Season 13. The gear is not even top tier, by the way. It is simply decent gear. Today, I, New Off, will show you an excellent starter build to start any season as a Chain Lightning Sorcerer. In the 2 years I have been playing Diablo 4, there has not been a single season where lightning builds were not viable. Usually, they are either the strongest or the fastest. That is a fact. The update released together with Lord of Hatred, and what changed? Nothing really. Everything remains the same. Lightning still it still is the most comfortable farming build. Even despite the nerf to the Lightning Ultimate in Season 14, I am confident we will still be farming quickly with Lightning. As for pushing high pit tiers, we may end up using a damage over time firewall build. That was the case on the PTR, where Fire achieved the best results. However, there is no guarantee that the live season will be the same. It could end up being cold. Until roughly 2 weeks after the season starts, we will not know which build is actually the strongest for pushing. As long as I can remember, cold has never been meta outside of fun builds, never the fastest, never the strongest. This patch note has another attempt at buffing it, but I don't think it'll succeed. If you want to start with fire specifically so you do not have to respec later, there is already a leveling guide written before the start of last season. It is still perfectly valid. The only thing you need to know if you leave right now to watch it is that targeted farming of specific aspects from Nightmare Dungeons has been completely removed from the game. Every aspect now comes from random drops in random locations. I would also like to point out that switching to a different elemental build after reaching Torment 1 or Torment 4 is not something that requires significant resources. It is completely normal. Starter builds do not differ dramatically in power or speed because you will not be playing a starter build for very long, not long at all. So let me remind you once again that everything based on patch notes or comments made during Blizzard developer discussions is still speculation. I am also not promising guides for every sorcerer build this season. The only guaranteed guide will be for the strongest sorcerer build in Season 14. Also note that a guide for the endgame version of Chain Lightning already exists, and you can see a link to it on screen right now. The link will also be in the description. In other words, what you are watching now is a starter and leveling build, while the guide for the more advanced Chain Lightning version is already available. Let us begin with the starter build. As you can see, I am in the Eternal Realm. I have no Paragon points. I only have a few skill points invested into 2 lightning skills. My gear is random equipment picked up from the ground. This is exactly how we start the game, gradually improving our character over time. Skills and rotation will be covered together because everything changes as we level. First, we level Spark. The first upgrade node grants crackling energy when damaging a target for the first time. The second upgrade node gives Spark 1 additional shock. The third main node allows it to hit multiple enemies. Next, we level Chain Lightning. The first upgrade node doubles the skill's damage against the first target. The second node was changed before the season, but it changes nothing for us, so we still take it. The third upgrade provides a massive damage increase by removing Chain Lightning bounces while significantly increasing the damage of single hit damage. At this stage, simply hold down Spark and cast Chain Lightning whenever needed and whenever you have enough mana. To restore mana, temporarily stop casting Chain Lightning and use Spark because basic skills do not consume mana. Next, we unlock Teleport with these upgrade nodes. Keep in mind that Teleport itself deals damage, and its cooldown is reduced by collecting crackling energy. The crackling energy themselves also deal damage. This requires no effort on your part. They are automatically collected when you walk over them and automatically discharge into nearby enemies. The next skill is Ice Armor with these upgrade nodes. Nothing changes in the rotation. You simply gain mobility through Teleport and an additional defensive tool for fighting elites or large groups of enemies. Next, we level Hydra with these upgrade nodes. Every attack from every Hydra head now heals us and reduces the cooldown of a random skill, while Hydra itself deals cold damage. Later, you can replace the healing node with the extra head. Cold damage chills enemies, and once chill reaches 100%, the target freezes briefly. The next skill is Familiar. We take the increased damage radius, increased duration, and the ability to grant a stack of Overpower when it appears. At the time of recording, Familiar grants 2 Overpower stacks. According to the patch notes, after the patch it will only grant 1. The Overpower stacks themselves increase damage by 15% per stack. However, we will primarily use them to reset Teleport. This Teleport node instantly refreshes the cooldown but consumes 1 Overpower stack, Keep in mind that overpower stacks do not last long. Each stack has a duration of 4 seconds after being gained, so you can't hold 4 teleport jumps in reserve. Teleport movement works like this. If there are no enemies nearby, cast Familiar, teleport, cast Familiar, teleport. To do this, you need to move the skill point to this node. During combat, overpower stacks are also generated by meteors. More on that later. Next, we temporarily skip all mastery skills because we don't have anything to activate them yet. We'll level them later when Talrasha's set becomes available through Talismans. The next skill we take is the ultimate with these upgrade nodes, but only once we have at least some cooldown reduction from gear. Cooldown reduction can appear on your helmet, gloves, amulet, rings, and offhand. You do not need it everywhere, but having it on at least 3 pieces of gear is recommended. We will talk about gear later. Initially, the mana cost reduction node is useful on the ultimate. Once your gear improves, switch it to the additional lightning damage node. At this point, we do the following. Spark remains our basic skill until we have enough mana for sustained combat. Continue leveling Chain Lightning. Once Chain Lightning reaches around level 8 and you have some legendary gear, you will be able to function reasonably well without Spark, especially after obtaining the recharging aspect for mana recovery. At that point, we drop Spark in favor of the ultimate. After removing Spark, do not forget to remove the skill points from its upgrade nodes. Leave 1 point in the skill itself because it will still be needed in the enchantment slot. Level the ultimate and Chain Lightning evenly. The higher the level of the ultimate, the longer it remains active. It also reduces its own cooldown when you absorb crackling energy. Absorbing crackling energy increases your lightning damage. Previously, it increased the damage of all lightning skills. Now it only affects crackling energy. That is not a problem. The strongest farming and endgame build in Season 12 was built around crackling energy. Take another look at the ultimate description. While it is active, the listed skills are automatically cast. Because of that, we put 1 point into each of those skills to gain the benefits from their upgrade nodes. We take charge bolts with upgrade nodes that increase movement speed and apply weakness to enemies. We take Lightning Spear with upgrade nodes for increased spear speed, double damage, and 2 additional spears. Then we take Ball Lightning with upgrades that grant ferocity charges, generate 3 crackling energy, and make the orbs rotate around you. So the last 3 skills we just unlocked work passively whenever your ultimate is active. Eventually, your ultimate will be active permanently with 100% uptime. However, that will only happen after reaching level 70 and entering Torment 1, where you can acquire all the necessary aspects and high-level gear. Level the ultimate first. Chain Lightning and Ice Armor. Once you collect the Talrasha Talisman set, which automatically activates mastery skills, we will need 1 point in Blizzard with these upgrade nodes. The first grants a barrier, the second restores mana, and the third makes enemies vulnerable. We also take Meteor with nodes that stun enemies, grant a overpower stack for each enemy hit, and apply burning damage over time. These skills and their upgrade nodes are triggered automatically through the Talrasha Talisman set. All remaining skill points should eventually be prioritized into the ultimate first, then Chain Lightning, and finally Ice Armor. Do not worry if a node in the guide differs from the one shown in the planner. During leveling, that is not important because the build is still clunky, slow, and awkward to play regardless. You constantly find yourself asking why you put yourself through this every new season. That applies to every starter build, by the way. All of them feel rough until they reach a reasonably complete setup. Talismans. Until you reach Torment 1 and above, you will not be able to complete the Talrasha Talisman set. That is the set we want. Until then, simply use whatever talismans you have available. Don't overthink which sets they are, just equip and use whatever drops. Over time you will obtain sigils for 4 talismans, then 5, and after reaching Torment 1, 6 talismans. Do not overestimate the value of the early cross-class talisman sets. They help a little, but not much. The patch notes mention buffs to other talisman sets, but to avoid confusion and constant switching, I recommend sticking with the proven Talrasha setup. It is an excellent choice for leveling. What ultimately becomes the strongest endgame option will only be clear 1 or 2 weeks after the season starts. Enchantments. The Enchantments panel is opened with the S key by default. At level 15, place Spark there for additional crackling energy. After that, place Chain Lightning. It grants an additional cost after spending 100 mana. Gear. The most important thing I can tell you is this. Do not spend even a second examining white, blue, or yellow items. Literally not a second. Whatever drops, equip it. When legendary items start dropping, do not spend much time on them either. Start paying attention only once item power reaches 500 and above. Only after item power 500 should you begin looking for useful affixes, for example, rings and gloves that already have critical strike chance, critical strike damage, or cooldown reduction. If you start spending gold re-rolling secondary affixes, you will run out of gold. Do not re-roll gear until you really hit a wall where enemies stop dying efficiently. I will show the desired stats in the planner because, for obvious reasons, I do not have leveling gear available in the Eternal Realm. Characters transferred there from previous seasons already arrive with good gear. The most important thing on gear is the aspects. Imprint them onto your gear as you obtain them. Aspects are acquired automatically by salvaging legendary items at the blacksmith. Every aspect you unlock can then be imprinted onto other items an unlimited number of times. Salvaged aspects are stored in the Codex, where they gradually increase in rank when you salvage higher quality versions of the same aspect. Helmet gets the Juggernaut's aspect for increased armor. Refer to the planner linked in the description for the desired item affixes. Your chest armor uses the aspect of concentration, another defensive aspect. After casting conjuration skills, it grants damage reduction. In our case, those skills are Hydra and Familiar. Gloves use the elemental constellation aspect for increased damage when 3 different elements are present on your skill bar. We have Cold from Ice Armor and Hydra, Fire from Familiar and Teleport, Lightning from Chain Lightning and either Spark or the Ultimate in its place. Pants use the Mage Lord's aspect, which also provides damage reduction after using a shock skill. Our primary damage skill, Chain Lightning, qualifies as a shock skill. Boots use the Shredding Blades aspect, which makes enemies vulnerable when hit by our conjuration skills. As a reminder, those are Hydra, Familiar, and later Lightning Spear. The amulet uses the aspect of Overwhelming Currents. It was also nerfed in Season 14 through the addition of a single word in its description. Now the damage increases frequently rather than constantly when lightning critical strikes occur. In practice, frequently could mean anywhere from 0 to 100%, and they can tweak this value server-side without any patches. On the rings, we use the recharging aspect for permanent mana sustain and the aspect of Armageddon for damage. The latter was also nerfed, but it is not a major issue. Apparently, Pit 150 accessibility concerned them. For weapons, either a wand or a dagger works. Both have the same base attack speed, so either option is fine. The Splintering Energy aspect is extremely effective against elites and bosses because the first hits in its sequence deal very high damage. The offhand uses the Conceited aspect for increased damage while you have a barrier. Tempering. Refer to the planner for the exact affixes on each item. Temper armor pieces for maximum life because the barrier granted by ice armor scales from your maximum life. Temper gloves for critical strike damage. Temper boots for movement speed. Temper your weapon and offhand for lightning damage multiplier. For jewelry, temper one item with lucky hit chance to restore mana and the other 2 with cooldown reduction. Paragon. Refer to the planner for the full Paragon setup. Although discussing Paragon is somewhat out of place in a starter build guide, I want to clarify one thing. The second board is taken second specifically because its legendary node not only increases damage but also helps with mana regeneration. Everything else can be found in the guide for the endgame version of the build. Runewords and Gems. Use Tem plus Qua for increased movement speed. Use Ter plus Se to summon wolves. They provide both damage and defense. If you're a newer player, there is also a short guide explaining everything you need to know about runes. For gems, use a ruby for fire resistance because the spears falling from above deal fire damage. Use an emerald for poison resistance, which is the second most significant threat. Use a diamond for general resistances. Mercenaries. Recruit Subo first. Mercenaries become available after level 15 and after completing the quest associated with their name. Subo reveals all enemies on the minimap, which is extremely convenient and also increases your damage, although only temporarily. For your second mercenary, choose Raher with the Bastion ability, which activates whenever an enemy attempts to apply crowd control to you. If there are any changes to this build, which is unlikely for a starter build but still possible, check the planner for updates. For the endgame version of the build, check its dedicated planner as well. I do expect some changes because fixed critical strike chance values were removed from both Ring of Starless Skies and Air of Perdition. The exact range of critical strike chance available on gear is still unclear. However, the changes do not seem significant enough to justify making an entirely new endgame guide. Personally, I would not mind creating a new guide with only minor differences, but YouTube would not appreciate that. If enough changes accumulate to fill a complete video, then I will release one. In any case, remember that all endgame build updates will always be reflected in the planner. That covers everything for this Chain Lightning Sorcerer leveling and starter build. If you enjoyed the guide, leave a like. If you did not enjoy it, leave a like anyway. Either way, leave a comment. I would also appreciate a subscription. Thank you for watching. Take care.